Hi, Ed.
Hi, Kathy. How you doing today?
I'm great. What's up? What are we talking about?
Well, let's do introductions first. I'm Ed Boyle, and I am a co-owner of Katchen Company, a boutique full-service real estate firm offering both residential and commercial real estate solutions to the greater Denver metro area.
And I'm Kathy Boyle, and I am co-owner and broker with Ed, and I specialize in residential relocation for people moving in and around the Denver area. So here we are. It's been a busy week,
Well,
don't you think?
it has been a busy week. It really
I
has.
know.
What I thought I'd do is shake things up a little bit today
That's a
and
good thing.
maybe people's interest. And I thought that would go ahead and talk about sex, the sales or
What?
exchange of properties. Yes, yes, indeed,
Wait, I
sex.
thought we were going to get really exciting there. We needed to give a little pause, to create a little excitement in the room. Let's talk about sex.
So
Okay.
anyway, we're going to talk about uh, the sales or exchange of your investment property and how that relates to a
Okay.
1031 exchange. Okay. Um,
Okay.
and
All right.
so the thing is that um, in these particular times, it's a little tough for people to make that decision. But the reality is they have to make that decision before they list their property. Okay.
So why don't you explain that really quick?
Okay. So uh, we've talked about it before, but the 1031 exchange is basically it's the tax code. 1031 is the tax code which covers the ability of an investor to take and sell one property and buy another property and defer paying the capital gains at the time of that sales and repurchase. What it does is it creates
Right.
buying power for them. Because if you didn't have this law in place and they wanted to sell one property, but they did want to buy another property, they would sell the property, have to pay their capital gains, which would mean that they would have less money to be able to purchase their next property with. And so it'd be a real disadvantage.
Right.
And and quite frankly, if something happens and the 1031 tax exchange is taken away from investors, I think that we will see a decline in the amount of properties which are conveyed by investors. Okay.
Well, you're probably right. I don't disagree with that at all.
So
Yeah.
it's a tough decision, but because of the tax code's requirement, the IRS wants to know that if you put a property on the market to sell, that your intent was to
Yeah.
exchange it. You can't take and put it on the market to sell, get it sold, and go, oh, by the way, I think I want to do a 1031 exchange. You can't do that.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
you have to declare up front, and you have to have a real estate agent with the knowledge to know what needs to go into that listing contract so that if the IRS wants to look at it, they'll understand that your intent for putting this property on the market was so that you could go ahead and sell it. Okay.
Well,
So
sure.
so if you decide you don't want to, then that's not necessary. And of course, you've made the decision, the sell part and sex.
Hmm. That could be taken a few different ways, the cell part and sex.
Okay. And so then we go to the exchange. If you decide that you want
The
to exchange
exchange.
that property, there you then are going to take and have to do some additional things. And of course, one of the things is
Right.
that you have to hire an intermediary. All right. And so what we have to look at is that um, when we talk about the 1031 exchange, it's like in kind. Okay. So you could probably speak to that from the residential standpoint as I can speak to it from the commercial standpoint. So I don't want to steal all the thunder. So um, why don't you talk a little bit about um, the types of things that an investor that's interested in making a residential as their investment property, those things that they might
Right.
want to consider in taking and doing an exchange.
Well, you mean, are you talking about what type of property they would be looking for? Is that what you were
Whatever you
wanting
want
to
to share.
explore, or
Share. It's a time to share. So
time to share? Well, I mean, I would say more often than not, that what you see in different scenarios is that if somebody is a real estate investor and they own a property, let's say for an example, somebody owns a multi-family, number of apartments as an example, and they don't want to be owning apartments. They would rather look at condos or single family homes. They could do a exchange from one of those properties into the other. So I know that in the past we've dealt with clients where they had ownership in an apartment community, and they owned an entire building, and they wanted to do the exchange. So they went out of the apartments and they actually went into um, exchanging and purchasing a variety of condos throughout the city. So it gave them some diversity of areas and price points and sizes, and just diversified their portfolio. But it was for the same amount of money for what they sold it for which they purchased for. So they didn't have the higher tax implications.
well, that's exactly right. And the same thing applies with commercial. And in your example, Kathy, you talked about how what we would consider to be a commercial investment property, multifamily, where
Right.
where this investor sold that and then went into what we would consider to be more residential. The reason that it's still considered a like and kind exchange is because it's a rental property. Okay, they are going to,
Exactly.
they're not going to be personally occupying it. It's going to be a rental property. It's going to take and be managed just like any other rental property. And, and the only caveat with that is that in this particular case that you're talking about, the investor owned it free and clear of debt. Now, if they had debt on the property, they would have to, when they bought those condos, take on the same percentage debt as to equity as they had in the property that they sold. Okay. So that's one thing that has to be considered, and it catches people by surprise. And the biggest challenge, if you take and do that, where you go from a large property to multiple smaller properties, that it might be harder to get a loan. Okay. And because, lenders on investment type properties, they have a tendency to want to loan more money. It's just too expensive for them to do small loans. And so that can be a challenge.
Right.
Okay. But on the other hand, if you have a commercial property, you can most definitely move into a different type of commercial property. So you can take and have that multifamily and choose to take and buy retail, or to buy office, you can buy a hotel with it. Anything which creates rental income can qualify for that. However, there's other things that it's difficult to do. Okay. And so the reality is that while we can take and as real estate professionals, counsel our clients and help them in doing this, there's a couple other people that have to be involved. That intermediary has to be involved in it, and your CPA has to be involved in it. And those things need to start early.
Exactly.
Same time that we talk to somebody about listing a property and doing this exchange, there should be that conversation with their intermediary, and with their accountant, their CPA. So it is something that is really important for people to know about. I think it's a great tool for taking and being able to grow a portfolio of property over a lifetime. without having to worry about the tax implications with each transaction.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's definitely a complex subject and one that you're pretty familiar with, and I think can definitely benefit people if they are looking at real estate as an investment. And so it's probably something that you could continue to have the conversation with on an ongoing basis, because there's a lot of different components that are involved. But I think we should wrap it up for our audience today.
No more talking about sex.
Exactly. Who knew that a 1031 could lead to sex? I don't know if that's in any book that I've read.
Well, again, my name is Ed Boyle. And if you'd like to talk to me and pick my brain a little about 1031 exchange or any other real estate topic, you can reach out to me at 303-564-5387 or eboyle@katchencompany.com.
And my name is Kathy Boyle, and I'm happy to talk to you about sex or anything else. And my number is 303-507-0859, or you can email me at kboyle.kb@gmail.com. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being with us today. All right. Talk to you later. See you next week.
See you.
Take care.